Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. And we're approaching that time of year. School's getting out, and kids might be looking for jobs, or you might be looking to get your kids a job. So we just thought it would be a fun time to talk about summertime jobs. We've all had them, and I'm sure they're different through the years as life changes. Lifeguard, newspaper carrier, retail jobs, you name it, right? So I was thinking of this the other day. I don't know what I was looking at, and it popped into my head. And I thought, you know what? This would be an awesome conversation for me to have with my funny friend, Gab Bonesso in Pittsburgh, because she's so high energy. I love talking to her, and I just thought we would have fun with this topic. So without further ado, I will welcome my recurring guest from Pittsburgh, comedian, public speaker, and children's performer, Gab Bonesso. Hey-o.
Thanks for having me. And I'm going to show you this is a shirt my 5-year-old godson made. So he's also has a summer job this year. So if anyone would like to buy a homemade sweatshirt from Oscar, he's not really selling them. But the point is, every kid should have a gig starting at 5 years old.
I have to say that I love that drawing. That is so cool.
Right?
That is so neat. And I love that sweatshirt.
Yeah, it was I think they gave it to me the week before Mother's Day. So I'm assuming this was my Mother's Day gift because, I don't know how things work. I'm just a godmom, but I love it. Janine, I'm so glad to be with you.
I gotta say, I love that. That is, and you know what? That's a great gift for a
Right. Oh,
godmom.
I
Yes.
wear it all the time. And I was at a coffee shop and like a real adult human was like, "That's a cool sweatshirt. Where can I buy that?" I'm like, "My godson made it for me, so I don't know. I don't have to commission it."
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Yeah, and you know what? I'm like Gab. I am a godmom only. So I do have. I'd have to take a moment and think. I have. Let's see, four godchildren, I think.
Wow.
Sadly, I am not in touch with all of them for life and various reasons, but I will say quickly that I did get to spend time with one of my godchildren over the weekend. I got to go to Maine for a few days. My dear friend Sharon, who I've known since high school, and we were college roommates together. Her middle daughter, she has three daughters, her middle daughter, Morgan, who is artistic. She was actually in the project I did, Restart Scranton. She had some artwork in that, some environmental upcycled artwork. She graduated from Susquehanna University with an environmental science degree, and she is spending the summer working in Maine at the coastal, I might mess up the order of the words, but I think it's called the Coastal Botanical Gardens in Booth Bay Harbor or Booth Bay up in Maine. It's a little bit above Portland. So she had to get settled in this past weekend. Her mom was driving out there, and Morgan was in her own car, but her mom was out there bringing some stuff and helping her get set up with her housing. And I was invited to join them, and I got to spend time, and it was awesome. And I'm so proud of my goddaughter. She's just a kind person. She's very sweet. She's kind. And I love her artistic side. I love that she loves the environment. And she's going to be working in the entomology part of it. So she'll be dealing with the butterflies and stuff. So it was just really cool to see what she's going to be doing and to check out the gardens. They are very cool. And I'm so excited because I did not know that these were the same gardens. I've seen people post on Facebook these giant trolls that are made of like trees or wood. They have them there. They have like five or six of them, and they're by like a Denmark artist. And when I found out, I'm like, oh my God, these are where the trolls are. It was really fun.
What a cool summer gig.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, I think it's great. And it's like, so she graduated, gosh, I think she's only out about a year now in about a year in May. So this is temporary, but it's still, imagine that on your resume. That's pretty cool. Like this is a really cool garden. It's a neat place, and I know she'll get great experience.
It's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's neat. Now, we're going to talk about our summer jobs. And I
Yeah.
think some of them could probably go under most fun category, and some maybe, and I don't know about you, but I'll say for some of mine could go under, oh my God, I would not want to do that kind of job. So I'll start by sharing one of my jobs, which can go into, because then we'll go to the what I would think might be fun, but you can tell us. So my senior year, I should say the summer before my senior year of college, I went to Penn State and I came home, of course, for the summer and looked for a job. So this is the summer of 92. before my final year at Penn State College, I would go to temp agencies and see what they had. Now, as I had someone tell me later, they're like, yeah, they are just going to give you the college students these crappy jobs because other people probably don't want them, or and because they're only temporary, right? So I went there and they're like, well, we have this job. It was at a place called Made Right, and it's a meat packing place. So this actually inspired some comedy in the one woman show I did years ago, from plaid to pork chops and everything in between. And I got to tell you, what an experience. And I won't go on too long because there's so much I could talk about with this. But first of all, we're working in a place that's like refrigerated all day. So you're in the summertime, you've got to wear jeans, a sweatshirt, and then you get this white, like, snap up coat that's kind of like, think like a lavish kind of coat. And then you had like the hairnetty kind of thing, but the white kind that's like, that stretchy material. And then you had the paper hat. And I will post photos of that when I post this podcast. So the little paper hat, and it said Made Right on the side. So every morning we have our own lockers. We go in, we put on our coat and our hat. We get in line, and the foreman, why I remember this guy, I can picture him still to this day. Black beard, glasses, Mark Golden, I think was his name. That's not important to the story. I'm just sharing. And he would tell us what line we were on, line 1, line 2, whatever. And wow, what an experience. I mean, picture like the famous sitcom with Lucy, excuse me. I love Lucy, right? With the chocolates and her stuffing them in her mouth. But I couldn't stuff meat in my mouth.
Raw meat, that'd be a little disturbing.
I wouldn't want to anyway. This was actually the frozen chicken patties. And that was one of my first days. So you had to get on the line next to these ladies, and you had to grab a cardboard box. You had to, like, afterwards you get to be like, or it was like origami and you could totally whip it out. But when you're just new, it was kind of hard. You had to put the cardboard box together. You had to line it with a plastic, like, kind of like lining bag, whatever. And now we're wearing gloves because it's cold. And you had to, like, pick up out of certain lines, like 2 or 3 of them, stack them, close up the box, do it again. Well, let's just say when you're new, you're new, you're 20 years old, you're like, whatever, you're letting some go by. And the ladies are not happy. And they're like, pick up. Pick up, because if they miss them, they end up in a bucket at the end. So that was interesting. And then, of course, the other 2 things I'll share, and then I want to talk to you about your jobs. One job that was really not fun at the packing place, it was the liver line. It was bloody liver, and that had to be packed. And none of us wanted that. That was probably when we would go in the morning, we'd be like, I don't want to be on the liver line. Oh my God. I don't want, although we did manage to have fun. I will share this, that you can always find humor, because we would write songs and be, oh, liver boy.
Oh my God.
We would write songs, but that was like a gross line. It really was. It was like the meat would come down, and it was sitting, like, it was in, like, kind of in blood. So you're grabbing it. Of course, your gloves are getting filthy. Our jackets got, like, gross, and we didn't always get, like, fresh ones. So those would be in the locker, and you might have to come in the next day and put that on. And it was like, oh, it was disgusting. It was really not cool. And then the other line that wasn't so much a line, it was more of a 2-person job. There was this, like, machine where you put the meat in, and it would, like, vacuum seal it, like vacuum pack it. We had to stand there and pull fat out of veal. Yeah. So that was another not so fun job. It really wasn't. And then the one day, of course, it did give me funny stories to tell. When I remember going to my cousin's over the summer, I had a cut on my hand, and I'm like, that came from a lamb chop. It cut right through my gloves.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I did that and I'll say this much, though. I am proud of myself because I did not quit. I did ask them, like, okay, do you have any other jobs? Is this all you've got? Nope. They said no. So I stayed with it from May to August until the end. And thankfully I had company. I had a friend of mine, and we met, like, I think there were 3 other college students with us that summer. And it was $5.25 an hour.
Oh my God.
Yes. And this is not a summer of 1992, $5.25 an hour. And then I think they did offer occasionally, like on a Saturday, there was, like, overtime. So we did do that a couple times. And it was just, you know what, we got through it. And I will say, a lot of the women there, again, this is like real people, right? The grit you learn. Like, I'll never forget this one woman named Millie. I mean, like, her boobs were, like, probably like the size of my head, each of them. And, like, she had this, like, butterfly you could see on her breast. her and a lot of the other women were like, at least you get to leave here at the end of the summer. So like
Oh,
you hear a lot of their stories, and another woman who like, barely made enough to like pay for her kids to be in like childcare. So it's that real stuff where you're like, okay, I do get to leave and I'm fortunate. And you do recognize that, and you get to like hear real stories from women who've been doing this. Some of them were there for 20 years. And so that was probably to this day one of my most interesting and dirtiest, ickiest kind of jobs that I did. And now of course I can laugh about it. And I did kind of laugh about it then, but yeah, that's probably my ickiest job.
man, when you were talking about the liver station, I was thinking of in the movie Scream when he's like, "Live her alone, man." And I just kept thinking, like, if I worked with you, I just said, "Live her alone, Janine." But like, oh my God, that would make me never eat meat again, I think. Like you just describing picking the fat out of the veal, like his ruined veal. Like I'm just like, I'm imagining like Scranton college kids picking out fat, and it's disgusting to me. Also, what is the job situation in Scranton at this time that this was the best gig you got? Weren't there
I
any
know.
stores, Janine? Jesus.
That I you know what I don't know is, let's see, summer of 92. I don't know what was going on, but like I'm also the type, and I'll admit this even to this day, and I'm trying to shake it a little bit. Like you tell me what's what, and I'm like, okay, like you know what I mean? I'm just like, okay, I'm supposed to get a job. You're telling me this is all you have. Okay, maybe not super, super duper ambitious. Like I'm gonna go out, pound the pavement, and look for something else. I'm like, okay. And I did stick with it all year. The one summer I packed books, and that was only a temporary, and that was of course better than packing like bloody liver. Packing books was much better. And I will share that that one was kind of funny because that summer it was Irma Bombeck's book, When You Start to Look Like Your Passport, It's Time to Come Home. I remember
Like,
seeing a lot of that coming down the conveyor belt.
that's crazy. You worked a lot of conveyor belt job. You were very I Love Lucy. Gonna go to the factory for the summer. Like, what is happening in Scranton? I'm telling you in Pittsburgh, when no one's like, I'm going to the factory. That does not happen. It's not happening.
Me and my steel lunchbox, it was like, okay, the missus, let's see what the missus packed me today.
Oh my gosh.
But I want to hear about, you told me that you drove, I believe, an ice cream truck one
Yes.
summer.
Yes, I did. And unlike Janine, I can't say that I lasted the whole summer. I tried. I wanted to, Janine. I really wanted to. It was one of those situations where it was never the intention to be an ice cream truck driver. My best friend Bethany and I were just driving along a road, and there was a sign that said "ice cream truck drivers wanted." And I went, "Turn!" And I took her wheel and just like did one of those, and she was like, "Argh!" And we pulled right in, and it was called Billy's Ice Cream. And Billy was one of the sketchiest mofos I've ever met in my life. And he was like, "You got a license?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got a license." And I showed it to him. And he's like, "You got any clearances?" And I was like, "You know what? I actually did work at a camp 2 summers ago. I have clearances." He's like, "You're hired." Like nothing. I was like, "Don't I need like a special license to drive?" He's like, "Nah, show up tomorrow and we'll train you." I'm like, "This is the best day of my life." So she thinks it's hilarious. We go home. I'm telling everyone, I'm an ice cream truck driver. You know, it's another Gabby thing that everyone thinks is typical Gab. This work is intense, Janine. So I get there and it's like a family minivan, but the whole back is a freezer. So it's like really heavy. There's ton, you have to load all the ice cream. So every day you're doing inventory of what you're putting in the truck. Then you have to do inventory at the end of the night of what you've taken out of the truck. Um, you have to pay the money you make, you get tips, and you get a cut of the money. And it was all very strange. You were handling tons of cash. They're not teaching you anything. I trained with another college kid, and he'd be like, "Yeah," and just he'd drive like a maniac. I wasn't really learning anything. I think I trained for like 2 days, and they gave me a truck, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so the one thing Billy told me, his only rule was you were never allowed to drive the ice cream truck in like a gated community that was for poor people. You could drive in a gated community for rich people if they let you in. But like my parents, their first, like when they raised my three brothers, it was always in the projects, you know, the PJs, baby. You can't tell me I can't go in the project, but that was his rule. Don't go in the projects. But one day I got a shift where I drove by a housing project. And as I was driving by, all the kids were like, "Ice cream lady, ice cream lady." And Janine, I'm not going to drive by kids. So I pull into the project and it was like it was insanity. I mean, I kids from everywhere came out. Like my truck was surrounded by children within a second, like just all around my ice cream truck van. And they were all like, "Hey, could you give us anything for free?" And I was only allowed to give Tootsie Rolls for free. I'm like, I can't give you stuff for free. So I'm throwing out Tootsie Rolls like I'm, Santa Claus. And then they're like, no, we want ice cream for free. And I'm like, no, I can't give you ice cream for free, you silly billies. And now they start rocking my whole
My
ice cream
God.
truck.
Night
And
of
I'm
the
like,
Living Dead.
oh yeah. And I'm like, wait, no, guys, I was giving you free Tootsie Rolls. Stop it. Where are your moms? Cut it out. And then they're like climbing on the truck, trying to get into the window of the truck. And I'm like, oh no, Billy told me not to come here. So now I'm like, guys, I gotta close up. So I'm like closing the side window, getting back in the driver's side. I'm trying to turn around with all these kids around. I'm like, guys, you have to move. I'm honking. I'm like doing everything. I finally am getting my way out of it. And as I'm getting out of the freaking gate, I hear a woman scream, there's a kid on the roof of your truck. I slam the brakes and there is a kid on the roof of my truck. I'm like, get off the roof. I mean, I like lose my mind. I drive back. The truck is damaged. There are dents. Yeah, I got fired. I shouldn't have gone into the projects. And I did because I could not go to everybody, Janine. And that's why I lost the job. But before I did that, I do just have to say one more thing. I would drive to my street where I live, my neighborhood, with my mom and dad and everything, and I would go and like hang out on my lunch break and just leave the ice, like leave the ice cream truck, go in, have lunch, come back out to the ice cream truck. And the one day when I was leaving, I hit my sister's car, but I was still in training and she didn't hear it, so I just left and didn't tell her because I know my sister doesn't really notice stuff. I'm like, she'll never know. It was a huge dent. I'm like, she'll never notice. 8 months later, she noticed, and I had already quit Billy's. But yeah, so I did crash my sister's car also with the truck, and I had the truck destroyed, all in a matter of like the first 3 weeks of working at Billy's. So yeah, that was my ice cream truck nightmare situation. It could have been good, but it wasn't.
Oh man, what a meltdown.
Oh,
Oh man. So yeah, that was his one rule, Gab, right? And you didn't follow it.
one rule I refused to follow because I was just like, "You're such an elitist, Billy." Meanwhile, Billy was like, eating beans out of a can and just hiring people on the spot. And Corey, it was like it was an area that was really dilapidated. That's where I saw the sign, and I'm like, "Let's go! I got a new job." This is how I know I have ADHD. I mean, that impulsive behavior has been the driving force of my entire life, and it's like, oh, that's why I do this stuff. Anyway.
Now, did you like as a kid, did you like when those trucks were around? Like did you go out and like when you heard the bell or whatever it is, like that sound, whatever that recorded message or song, whatever, did you go, oh my God, it's ice cream and go running out?
It was the biggest deal. Like ice cream, like I lived on a dead end, and like when I was about 5, we could hear an ice cream truck at the like major plans, but not they'd never make it to my plan. So one time when I was 5, I was like, could I please walk up to the top of where the other plan is? And just so I could tell the ice cream truck to drive down Phillips Lane. And my mom let me go with my other friend who was 5. And when the ice cream truck started coming to us, I remember it was the first time I ever kissed a boy. I kissed him on the cheek. I'm like, and I was like, kids live down here. And then they started coming down Phillips Lane, which was like the biggest deal ever. And then when I was like 7, we had a kid who was on his summer from college. His name was Calvin. And he was the coolest. And he could do backflips. And he would always come and hang out at the dead end and like talk to my dad and like hang out with us. Yeah, like ice cream truck drivers were everything to me. So it was like, yeah, I was like fulfilling a little childhood dream for me.
Oh, see, and I think now as a kid, I'm sure that obviously they had them in the 70s. I feel like they were not a big part of me growing like as a child. I feel like that music, you hear it, it's an ice cream truck, right? And I feel like it probably did come around, but I don't think I mean, I guess I got excited, but I will say, and this is not like, I mean, we're working class, middle class family. It's not like we're the elite, but mom and dad, they would take us to places that were local. I remember Joe Dell's was one place we had locally, and it was like a real treat if we'd go to Manning's, the local farm, and they have like maybe 6 8 locations, but back then they only had a couple. And like to go to the farm where you could see the cows, that was a real treat because it was like probably we're talking a 20-minute ride that as a kid it felt like an hour. Like, ooh, we're going to the farm. I remember getting sleepy even on the ride out there, but I don't really recall too much with the ice cream trucks. I mean, obviously they were around. And of course, even now it does, there's something so nostalgic when you hear them coming around that you like instantly feel like you know that connection. It means summertime. So it's definitely usually a nice positive memory. Now, maybe not for, has that changed your memory of them now that you had kids like swinging off the top of an ice cream truck?
No, I still have like even after I stopped working at Billy's, when Billy's would come down my Phillips Lane, I would run back. I mean, as an adult, I never forget. This is kind of a funny story. I was 23, so it was the end of my senior year of college, and I had rear-ended someone like in that winter. Never thought anything about it. It was summer. My sister, my mother, and I were all down at our swimming pool swimming. Ice cream truck guy comes. I go running up to get us all ice cream, and as I'm running to get ice cream, a sheriff pulls in front of my house, and I'm like, that's weird. It must not be for us. I'm getting our Choco Tacos, getting our popsicles. The ice cream truck leaves. The sheriff isn't leaving. That felt weird. So I just thought I'd walk over and be like, hi, sheriff, can I help you? And he's like, yes, I'm here for Gabrielle Bonesso. And I'm like, Gabrielle, like so naive. I'm Gabrielle Vanessa. Why would you be here for me? I'm here to serve you these papers. And the guy I had rear-ended was in a work vehicle, and I was getting sued because he hurt his neck. And then he was suing me, and then his wife sued me because she couldn't have sex with him. I literally
Oh
got
my
sued because she
God.
couldn't have
Are
sex
you
with her husband.
serious?
And I'm like 22, 23 years old, and I was like, I'm holding our ice creams and papers, and I walk back down to the pool crying. And I'm like, Mommy. Yeah, it was, I'll never forget that day. So yeah, I still get geeked out for the ice cream truck. And I'm
Okay,
not geeked out when it's sheriffs anymore. I'm like, whoa, I know what you're up to, sir.
I have to
Well,
come
go
back and
on.
ask. I'm hearing a theme here, though, Gab.
What?
So a little bit with the driving here, like you hit your sister's car, you rear-ended some guy, and he couldn't even have sex with his wife after that.
Yeah. Janine, I've like been coming to the conclusion that like now that we know I have ADHD, I do think I could lose my license. Like I'm not even lying. There have been times my whole life I would tell people I'd be like, I'm just driving, and then all of a sudden I'm like, holy shit, I'm driving. Like I don't even know that there's a like I'm like, what? There's a steering wheel in my hands. Like I literally have had that happen so many times, and I'm like, yeah. But I'm working on it. I'm trying to be present. I get in the car, I ground myself. I'm doing the work, Janine. I'm baby stepping. Lost my
Okay,
stress.
all right.
Lost my stress ball. I'm
Do
so mad.
you
Like, what?
do you remember? Just curious, what happened with it? Did you end up having to pay or anything since you were being sued, or?
Great question, because I was sobbing, and my mother, I remember her wise words, that's why we pay for car insurance. So then I called the car insurance people nationwide on your side, and they took care of it. Did our premium and everything go up a bit? Sure did. Sure did. But they dealt with the brunt of it. But they got a lot of money. They won. My car insurance had to pay them like a big hunk of cash. Yeah, they won.
Wow. I'd
I
love to
ruined
see
them.
her.
It was Christmas time. Yeah.
Oh man, I would love to see her documentation about her sex life being impacted. Like Exhibit A, here's what it used to be like. No more jungle gym, no more, no more swing, no more hanging off the chandelier.
Yeah, it was pretty. My mother was just so appalled by it, just like, she would, yeah. Anyway, I was still young enough that my mom sort of took control over it. It was like,
That's a good thing when the parents take control. I
yeah.
will say my first I've had probably, I think, a total of three accidents. The first one though happened, and I will say I'm proud or glad that I actually still went and got my license because I had my permit when my first car accident happened. And let's talk about jobs. It wasn't summertime, but it was a high school job. So let's see, I was probably 16 or close, I guess 16, because I think in Pennsylvania we could at that time like apply for at when we were 15. So I was either like just about to be 16 or I was 16, and I was working, probably was 16. I was working as in retail at the Globe store, it was a big deal here in Scranton. John Wanamaker's, he has a huge store in Philadelphia, but we had the Globe store downtown Scranton. The building now is owned by the county, but it was the place to be. In fact, there's a whole Facebook page and group dedicated to this. This was a big deal. This is the place with 5 floors. You'd go there to see the Easter Bunny, to see Santa. They had the Charlemont, which was a place to eat. They had fresh made like candy, every store imaginable, a record department, you name it. And I was driving there. Of course, dad was with me because I didn't have my license. I had my permit. So he's in the passenger seat. And I still get tweaked because it's a route I take a lot. It's Kaiser Avenue, you're at the light, and it's one of those where you have to turn left in front of traffic to merge. And it was like, I want to say my shift started at 5 or whatever it was. It was maybe the fall, the sun was going down, couldn't quite see. There's 2 lanes, so you could see the one that's going straight, but the other one coming up, I couldn't quite see. And I start to make the turn and probably shouldn't have, and then that car hit our car. And then
Uh-oh.
I panicked and pressed my foot on the gas. So it went into a telephone pole. So, I mean, we weren't hurt, although back in that day, I didn't go in an ambulance. Maybe I should have. I still have like a lump on my one knee because at the time where my knee hit the steering wheel, it started to bleed. I had my like pantyhose and it was like bleeding, and I should have probably gone to in an ambulance because I have that little lump there. But that scared the crap out of me. Now I did thankfully go on and get my license and things like that, but like that was on my way to work, and I still to this day, oh, I hate that spot. I really hate that, especially when the visibility, like I can't see the traffic coming. So there will be people like maybe behind me who would go, but I just sit there because if I can't see, I'm not doing that again. Or if I do make the turn, I like honk my horn so they know I'm coming because that was when I was just 16. That's a long time ago, but believe me, it has never left my memory, especially when I'm in that same spot.
Yeah, I feel like I've been in a lot of where I've just been the passenger in accidents and then nothing major though. Nothing ever I mean one a car was totaled. I was the passenger. Um but nothing, yeah, not like knock on wood, always,
Yeah.
like I told you once in one of my mental health talks, the worst thing that ever happened to a car was me, like me beating the steering wheel. And somebody got in, they're like, "Oh my God, what happened? Were you in an accident?" I'm like, "Yep, with this fist." Oh, and they're like, "I can't believe I'm letting you drive me. This is scary. You're a psychopath." But yes, that's part of my colorful tale.
Yeah, well, that with that accident, the car was totaled because
Oh,
they do the how much damage kind of thing, and it was. I remember it was a blue, kind of like skyish blue Chevy Celebrity. I think it was an '85 Chevy Celebrity. So
oh my
yeah,
God, I love those
yeah,
cars.
good times. Yeah.
My pap had an '85 Chevy Celebrity Gray. I loved it. Now you're making me all nostalgic for my pap.
Ah,
He
they
was the best.
stopped making those. I think those cars.
They
I mean, obviously things happen. They run, but I mean that whole like line that
The
particular kind.
celebrity line. I think they won from the celebrity. I could be wrong. And then they had the smaller was the Cavalier, and that just killed. And they stayed with the Cavalier for because I had every iteration of a Cavalier throughout my like I had the Cavalier station wagon when I started Josh and Gab. It was like I bought it used for like $500. It looked insane. Oh my God, the cars I've driven over the years. I would buy cars for like $800. I'd drive to New York in an $800 car. Ooh, things I've
Hey, if
done
it got you there, right?
for my craft, the things I have done.
Yes. Now, okay, this is a theme now. Now you're making me think, okay, another Chevy car accident story and a job that didn't even pay. So again, we'll go to my senior year at Penn State. Now, this is after my meat packing because that went so well and I have such great memories. But now, when I worked or when I went to school at Penn State, I did get a job, and I'm trying to think if it was my senior year or not, but I did have a job where I worked on campus in like the food. There was always different food places. I remember I made pizza, I made sandwiches, like different things like that. You had to clean up the floor, whatever. Well, I don't know if this was something I wanted to do in addition to that or what, but I saw an opportunity. It was the Center Daily Times. That was the newspaper out there in State College. And this wasn't that, but it was like they're free. It was like a freebie that you had to pick up the papers and then like kind of roll them up and just put them into like individual plastic sleeves and then deliver them in the morning. And it paid, when I tell you, like not next to nothing, like $60. Like we're talking, I was probably paying them at the end of the day. So I think that job lasted through 2 or 3 shifts because I was driving, attempting to put those into sleeves. And you can fill in the blank there. I had a car accident.
Oh
And
my
I will never forget this because, and it wasn't, I don't think it was total, but it was some serious damage. And this goes to the credit of running into nice people. I mean, I lived on campus, but we're actually in an apartment off campus, but this was out of the downtown State College. This was kind of out there in the neighborhoods. And this accident happened. And I did not have, I don't think I had AAA at the time, or else I didn't have my card. this nice guy. I don't know if I was in his neighborhood or I think he might have been like working or whatever it was, said I could use his AAA. And I don't know how the hell we got away with this at the
Wow.
time. Because I just remember him going, well, I can, get you towed or whatever. And the guy saying, so asking some question, and he goes, oh, I don't know, honey, do you want to answer that one? And that's all I remember. It got taken care of. But yeah, I don't remember how much damage, but and that job ended. And that was like two or three times I did that just to like deliver these stupid papers. And I was doing it like in the dark. It was a bad idea. Let me just put that out there. It was a bad idea all around.
Man.
My red Chevy Spectrum, that was the car I had. I think I got that as a senior in high school, and I had it probably into like maybe until I was like 24 or something like that. So maybe 24, 25. Yeah.
I don't remember the Spectrums. My brother had a Storm. I don't know if you remember the
Oh
Storms.
yeah, yeah. Those were sportier. The Spectrum was small. It had a hatchback kind of.
Okay. Yeah, his was very looked like the Batmobiles. Wow, I was describing because his was black and it looked very much like. And then my sister had a Geo Metro. Those were
Oh, those were cute. Yeah, those were kind of like tiny and sporty too, I think, right?
yeah. I had a used Metro at one point in my life. I stick shift. Drove it to New York. That was the main vehicle I used to drive to New York City. A stick shift all through Manhattan. Let me get there. But it was a great car to take to New York because I would actually, everyone would be like, oh, Gab, just take a train to the club. And I'd be like, no, I have this Geo Metro. I'll find parking. They're like, you're crazy. You'll never find parking the smallest little compact car. I always found parking. It was kind of great. It was actually great.
Now, were you driving from Pittsburgh to New York?
Yeah.
Rebecca?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My first, like, the beginning of my comedy career when I realized, like, New York's only 6.5 hours away. Why would I just only be in Pittsburgh? Oh my God. I went up constantly. And I had a really good friend that I've had since the second grade. She was working for VH1. She lived in Brooklyn, so I could stay with her for free. So she was just always like, whenever you want, come on up. So I took advantage of it and I came on up. Yeah. It was kind of great. The early part of my career was really intense and fun. I will say that. But yeah, but working wise, my mom and dad were really weird. Like they knew, I think they always knew I was special needs, but they wouldn't take me to a doctor to get diagnosed. So of all the kids, I was the only one who wasn't allowed to have a job, like a real job through school. Like they wanted me to be graduated from high school before I could really have a job. So the only two jobs I had is when I was under the age of 18 was I was a family member was a bookie and I was their assistant. And that was really exciting. I started that when I was about 8. And then when I was 12, I was allowed to babysit for the very first time. We had next door neighbors. It was a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And the mom asked, could Gabby come and watch? And my mom was like, okay, I guess because I'm right next door, we can do this. And so I went over, and I mean, first and last time I ever babysat in my life. That's it. That's my only time. I'll give you a few highlights. The 5-year-old told me as soon as I got there, he was like, hey, do you want me to make you a hamburger? And I was like, oh my gosh, you know how to make hamburgers? He's like, yeah, I know how to use the grill. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I can also use the blender and I can make you a milkshake. I was like, Chris, that's like my favorite meal is a hamburger milkshake. Go for it. So he goes off, literally gets meat, goes out to the grill, using a thing. I'm watching I don't know, some Nickelodeon show with the 3-year-old. We're having a great time. He comes in, serves us. I'm like, this is the best gig I've ever had in my life. Like, eating. At one point, my mom called to check in on me. And she's like, did I see Christopher out back at the grill? I'm like, yeah, he knows how to do it, Mom. He told me. I'm eating the burger right now. It's amazing. And she's like yelling at me, like, you can't let a 5-year-old use a grill. Are you insane? Enough. No more kitchen use. You guys can't do anything. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. And I'm like, Chris, you shouldn't have done that. Like, I'm yelling at him, even though I'm the idiot. I'm like, you shouldn't have done that. You lied to me. So then, it's getting late, it's getting dark, and the parents still aren't home, and the boys start freaking out, and they're like, we're really scared. We're afraid Lewis is going to break in the house. And you're probably like, what does that mean? Lewis was the previous owner who was breaking into their house. Like, seriously, like he could not accept the fact that he couldn't stay there anymore. And he would just show up in their house and smoke cigarettes, and they would come home and find Lewis in their house. So I had known it had happened once, but I didn't know the little boys knew about it. And the fact that they were that scared the out of me, and I'm like, ah! So it's like that joke I always do where I'm like, if my kid came in and was like, mommy, I had a scary dream, I'd be the one to be like, that's kind of what I did. I was like, guys, let's go upstairs. And we ran up to their bedroom. I locked the door, and the three of us hid under a twin bed until mom and dad came home. And the mom and dad found the three of us just hiding under the bed. And that was the last time I was ever allowed to babysit.
Thanks, Gab. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out.
Yep, one and done. I made them more scared. I scared the kids more. And then my best friend Bethany's 2 years younger than me. She got the gig. At 10 years old, she got the gig and was their babysitter all through high school. Like she was their full-time nanny in the summer. That could have been my gig. Could have had free burgers all summer, but no.
Oh man.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to back up and ask you, what does assistant to the bookie do at 8 years old? Were you like lighting his cigarettes? Were you threatening to break people's kneecaps? What was happening?
If this bookie were watching this right now, I'd be like, I don't smoke cigarettes. No, this bookie is a very neat freak kind of a guy. But this bookie, what he needed me to do was you probably don't know a lot about the illegal arts, Janine. So let me tell you, when you're a bookie, there is a bigger bookie that you deal with, okay? And then because this is like a legal business, the big bookie has a way where he can call your house and he does something so that your home number isn't the real home number anymore. And there's this other number that all the clients are dialing that isn't your home number, but it shows up at your home number. Don't ask me how, but there had to be someone to take the call from the big bookie to do the switch over for the phone line. And I was the phone line girl at 8 years old. It started at
Wow.
8. I had that gig till I was probably about 14 until the bookie moved out of my house. I'm not going to say who the bookie was. That's for his own or her, his or her own privacy.
Oh my God. Did you get paid to do this?
Oh, I got paid. Sometimes I would get like bonus gifts. Like one time I was taken to see the Nutcracker at the Pittsburgh Ballet, which is a big deal. I would get like whatever my favorite, because it was the 90s. So my favorite sports teams, I'd get like, starter sweatshirts or hats. But I would get cash too. It was a good little
That's
gig for, a kid who had to answer a phone and talk
that's
to
a
a
sweet
bookie.
deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the bookie lied about his name, so I never knew what his real name was. So I'd like, be like, they'd be like, this is Victor, but his name really wasn't Victor. But I'd be like, oh, hi, Victor, it's Susie. Okay. I'd wait for the sound. Okay. And then it'd be all good. Yeah. It was so weird. It was so weird. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's something new I've learned. I'm not familiar with that job, so that's interesting.
Yeah. I'm really excited to have my book, like put out a book, because I just feel like people don't even know half of these stories. There's a lot.
Yeah.
I've had a very colorful life.
I think people would enjoy that. That yeah, especially if they have no idea about this type of thing. It's like, well, this is interesting. This is a
Wow.
new
So a
story.
little girl did this. That's fascinating. Italian families. Oh man.
My earliest job was, I think it was grade school. I do recall there was this kid in school. I might have been in third grade or fourth grade. The mom gave me, I remember it was like $3 to walk him home. He was a little bit of a pain in the butt. I can picture him, his blonde hair sticking up, but I don't remember his name. And he was just kind of a little bit bold. And I think I only did it a couple times, but she paid me to walk him home. And then I did babysit, but I don't think that happened till maybe I was 13 or 14. And my first regular gig was doing a paper route. And I think was I 13 or 14? I took over my brother's paper route and I did do that for about 2 years until I started my retail gig at the Globe store, the world famous Globe store.
Wow. So your parents felt that you could handle working and going to school and it wouldn't ruin your life.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like it was. So yeah, the paper route I think was 14 and I did that. So it was like a couple hours each day. Like you had to be there for the paper, like to pick up the papers and then deliver it. So it probably took like an hour and a half. And I will say my father helped me. So my father worked for the Scranton Times, which is now the Times Tribune. And that was the paper I delivered. Not like it made it, like he wasn't bringing me the papers, but he would help. So he would help do certain
Besides the job,
streets. What's that?
is he the reason you both had that gig or?
No, well, no, I mean, it's not like you needed someone to vouch. You know what I mean? Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't like, oh, you're lucky you can get in. I think anybody who wanted to deliver papers could, but maybe that's why we wanted to.
Okay.
I feel like maybe that's why. Now, I don't know. I won't speak for my brother. Also, Also, I will say with those jobs, a lot of the other jobs you have to be 15 or 16. Like, let's say if you want to wash dishes or do whatever. Where to have a paper route, I don't know if there's a minimum age. If it is, it might have been like 12, but I was like 14. And I think because maybe because we knew the ropes, so to speak. And we grew up where my dad used to make us newspaper hats. That's one of
Oh,
my favorite memories. He used to, I never really, if I did learn, I've forgotten, but I did learn, of course, how to roll a newspaper, and I get a lot of ink on my clothes because I had to learn how to roll a newspaper because you had to throw it on the porch. So, but my dad helped. I had two different routes. The first one was smaller than the second one. And I remember the second one, he would deliver a whole street for me while I did like the
oh,
other street or whatever. And then I think we finished up another street together. So yeah, we did that. And then Sundays, I had one of those metal shopping carts to put the papers in and like lug it.
on your bike?
Oh God, no, no. I remember, Gab, I'm not a bicyclist. I was
Oh,
told to ride my bike as punishment because had no interest in it. And when I did get interest when I was 14, I got on my brother's bike and had no familiarity with handbrakes, went down my hill and
oh,
hit the brakes too hard, flipped over and landed on a patch of grass. And this kid who was like, I was 14 then. This kid who was like 8 was like to his friend, "Oh, did you see her flip?" It was just like they were entertained. Thank God at that time at 14, you're pretty young and like, flexible. I didn't get hurt, but yeah, no, I wasn't. I was delivering like walking, but it was one of those shopping carts you pull behind you, like those metal shopping carts
that sounds
that I would put the.
horrible.
It wasn't so bad.
I mean, dragging a cart like through neighborhoods, that just sounds like awful to me.
Well, it had wheels, you know what I mean? So you were like pulling. It only really sucked. It sucked when, like on Sundays, the papers were thicker, obviously, so it was heavy. So occasionally, like I would like drop the handle, and when it would hit like the back of your foot, it would really hurt because it was heavy. Like the whole thing would like fall over. It was top heavy. But my dad helped me with the Sunday paper too, so it was kind of a nice memory. I will say, probably the worst part, like I didn't mind pulling the papers behind me, but having to collect the money because people
Oh,
had like these paper things that you had to have like a hole puncher and you would punch the week that they paid. And every week you had to collect. And I think it was, I don't remember, it was a $1.50, $1.75 or whatever. And of course, a quarter tip was kind of average. So you had those customers that would give you 50 cents. It's like, ooh, they're nice. The ones who give you a buck, you're like, well, they're really nice. And then you'd have those customers who might be fibbing and be like, "Oh, I paid you." And you're like, "No, no." And then you had to collect the money. And then, of course, you get home and you're counting up all the bills and the coins. And you had to go to the office, the Scranton Times. They had a certain office for newspaper carriers, and you had to go pay every Saturday to pay for the papers and stuff. That part, I mean, so I did learn about money, but
that
I
seems
didn't
like a
love
little
that
kid
part.
shouldn't have to do that. Like that's like you talking just like truly, you're telling the story. And you're like going up and having to ask for the money, and then some people would lie and say they already paid. And I'm literally going back like into my childhood. Remember being in my foyer when the Post Gazette guy would come, and then we had a Suburban Gazette guy would come. And my family, man, our finances were always like fluctuating, but my parents also worked in like bar restaurants, so they understood tipping. So we would like, we were the dollar, sometimes $2 tippers, so you liked us. But there were also weeks where my mom would be like, "Oh, honey, can I get you next week and I'll give you double?" Because you knew she'd tip you more, and they always were go. But I like remember my mom having to wheel and deal the Post Gazette guy and the Suburban Gazette guy. But then I'm thinking of little Janine and my mom being like, "Honey, can I get you next week?" And you're like, "Okay, Mrs. Bonesso." But no, she should have paid me. She didn't pay me.
Now, those people I didn't like because we did have some of that where they're like, because sometimes you'd knock and they wouldn't be home. So you'd have
Oh,
to get them
true,
next
yeah.
week. But we did have some that were like, I'm sorry, I know I owe you from last week. And that was fine. It was just the ones who would like, there were a couple shady characters that you'd learn that would be like, "Oh, I paid you for that." And they might be behind 2 weeks. And you're like, "No, you didn't." And so sometimes you'd have to eat that. You know what I mean? The
Oh,
people who are like, "Come back next week," I didn't mind it because they were telling you. But it's interesting you talk about like, you said your parents, they understood. They worked in a bar and restaurant. It's often, or at least I find in life, the people that you expect to do something don't do it, right? So you might think the big fancy house or whatever. And not that I deliver to big fancy houses, but like you might think a certain person's going to tip better. Well, I remember delivering to this bar. It was on the corner right down from the church. and you'd see this woman and you probably think, oh, like she's wearing like the really short cut off denim shorts. She bartended downstairs. You'd go upstairs. The kids weren't always looking the cleanest, whatever. She gave me $1 every week tip.
I
Yep.
love that. I
Yep.
love that because it's the people who know, you always find like the people who even in life like suffer a lot are the kindest because they're like, I don't want you to suffer. You know what I mean? It's like that same kind of idea. Like, oh, I know what it's like to get that extra buck. I'm giving you that extra buck. I love that. That's like when I'm just so happy to be alive and I just wish we could all stop like seeing each other through our skin suits and just know we're these beautiful energy souls. And like, I don't know, but that was sweet, Janine. I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah, because again, I can see her face. She had long red hair. She was a pretty woman, but like you'd see her out, and you might, I mean, some people might judge her. You know what I mean, with the short
Yeah.
shorts or whatever. And oh, she's just a bartender, whatever. And the kids didn't always look the neatest. They didn't have the nicest things, but she paid on time, and she paid a nice $1 tip, which was probably like the most I got. And like, of course, then at Christmas, you'd get excited if someone gave you $5, $10, whatever. But like, I remember that, and you learn about life a little bit there. So I'm grateful for that experience. I will say, to shift gears a little bit, I would now, actually it's all drivers. Like I don't even think kids, at least around here, the kids don't have them. But like I can't imagine when I look back at that now. I don't know if it was safer, maybe it was, but like little young Janine was not always well informed, and young Janine might have been naive. So I'm grateful that nothing ever happened, because things can happen with kids. My dad was on the other street and we would meet up, but like things could have happened. I'm just grateful that nothing did. But I'm saying in this world, things
Oh,
happen.
yeah, I mean, truly, like I remember being maybe 3 or 4, and HBO ran a series called Stranger Danger, which you'd think was a good thing for a little kid to watch, but it wasn't. It made me like, ah! I mean, I literally thought I was getting kidnapped at every second of every day. Like I was a wreck. It made me a freaking wreck. And I remember even at school, you would like they'd have fundraisers. I don't know if your school did this, where you'd go and sell like crispy or almond candy bars, and if you sold enough
Yep.
there'd be a catalog and you could win prizes. And so even that, I would have to bring Bethany with me. Like in my own neighborhood, which I told you was a dead end, the suburban neighborhood, I couldn't even be alone to do that. Like in my own street, because I was afraid I will get kidnapped. And so, people won't kidnap 2 little girls, maybe. I don't know. At least that's what I thought. So she would always go with me. And yeah, it was a different, I mean, I'm not saying it was a different time, but I do think we maybe were a little like parents maybe were more trusting, thinking, well, what harm could happen in them walking a
Yes.
mile in our neighborhood? And a lot of harm could happen. You don't know every single family in the neighborhood.
Oh, absolutely. You're saying that was smart of you. Now I remember, now you're giving me this flashback totally. Are you talking, I mean, did we do fundraisers? Catholic school, they had nothing. Of course we did fundraisers. We used to have a kit, and oh my God, like seriously, you're giving me this flashback. It was like a cardboard kit that was pretty big. Let's say it was maybe 2 to 3 feet wide, or maybe 2 feet, and it had a handle, and it was my God, it was full of tchotchke junk. And I was going door to door with it. Now, I think my parents only probably let me go so far, because I do remember going up the street 2 doors up, and the woman was an older woman, because I'm thinking, Jesus, mom and dad, you could have had me kidnapped. But I think they probably gave me guidelines, like only go to certain houses, because my mom was also not one to like, quote unquote, bother people. You know what I mean? So
Right.
don't go to them. We won't ask anything of them. So we only went to certain houses, but it was this box of stuff, and you'd have the order form, and you'd pull out some of the stupidest stuff. Like I remember like a cloth like material calendar, like an odor eater kind of thing that you'd put in the fridge, like totally crappy stuff that was like $4, $5. And of course you'd get excited if you made a sale. But yeah, you just made me think of that memory. And that was grade school. I remember doing like lugging this heavy box thing when I was like 10 years old, 11 years old.
I'm just like, the fact that your Catholic school really made you a door-to-door salesman with the product. Like, like we either sold candy bars or there'd be like like a catalog you fill out to buy wrapping paper and then I'll deliver it and get the money there. But yours is insane. I mean, you were literally like a door-to-door salesman. What the heck?
Yeah.
How
Well, of course
desperate was
we
the
did
Catholic school?
candy. We did candy too. Like Gertrude Hawks is our local. We did that for like Easter and Christmas. But that, it was called the variety kit. That's what it was. So it was one of those companies. It probably, specialized in this, like just total junk. You know what I mean? Stuff
Oh
for the
my
house.
gosh.
Oh my, yeah, but you literally, like, I haven't thought about that in years and years, and now I just pictured little Janine lug at that box.
I just can't believe they have kids do that. Like that we actually, all of us, like we all were expected to raise money for our school or our band or whatever the thing was where it's like, we need you guys, we need you little soldiers. And my dad hated that stuff. Like that went through my father in a way that like he was not going to participate. So like if I like he wouldn't be walking with me up the street because he was furious anytime the school wanted me to work for money. Like in high school we had to sell band hoagies and it just put him in he's like, I won't ask anyone to buy a band hoagie. And my mom like, whatever, hon, and she'd take care of it and sell them all. I never had to sell a band hoagie. But yeah, just things like my father was really irked by that kind of like, I don't know why that bothered him. We went to a free public school. It wasn't like we were paying any money. I don't know. It really bothered him for some reason.
Well, I guess you could say it's kind of like child labor or something like that, or they're like pimping us out, really, to do
Yes, it's
something.
pretty bad. It's pretty
Yeah, it
bad.
it definitely was a different time. I mean, even like, so now I can tell you, my friends, for their kids, they're the ones selling. Like, one friend, she did have her daughter like ask, through Facebook, or at least, and then she'd have to say thank you when you put your order through. But some of my other friends, they're, I'm working through them, for the kids to buy their Girl Scout cookies, or, oh, do you want to order any candy? Like, they're the ones hawking the goods now. So it's like most kids today are, well, they're certainly not going door to door. We know they're not doing that like
Oh,
vacuum cleaner salesmen, but they're barely even, like, occasionally they might go like, little Susie, say thank you, or ask if they want something, but they're typically doing the selling today. The parents are.
yeah, well, the social media has really helped parents because, like, my friends will just be like, "Hey,
Yes.
we're selling Bosco sticks for the Monster football team. Who wants to buy 8 Boscos?" And it's like, all right, and it's all you do it all on Facebook. You don't ever see anybody. The only time I see kids actually hustling, and I don't know if they do this in Scranton. It's big here in Pittsburgh, huge. All the sports teams of the high schools do like pop-up car washes.
Yes.
The
Yep.
kids are actually the workers and they're doing it, but that's like the only thing anymore where I see like kids going to raise money for their stuff.
Yeah, I should say, because I'll say props to the Girl Scouts. I do still see them, like, they'll be in front of, like, let's say a supermarket.
Yeah,
Of course, the moms are with them, for obvious, which is good. But they'll be the ones like, do you want to buy, Girl Scout cookies? So they still ask. They're still in front of the supermarkets, and definitely, like what you said, the car washes are still really big. And so the
yeah,
kids will be out holding the signs, and they'll be doing the actual cleaning. That is true. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. We always, I feel like, I mean, I never did car washes, but we always had like spaghetti dinners or things that we had to do to raise money for the band. And and we were the labor. We always were the labor.
Good times, good times. Well, I'm going to start to wrap up here. We're doing not our usual, because Gab and I could gab forever, and we will definitely. In fact, I've been thinking more. The last few times we talked, Gab, or at least this past year, we were saying we should do our own thing, or we should start. And I truly am starting to think about that. So we'll be talking about that, I think, offline. I'd love to see, even if we just did something once a quarter in like our own little kind of gig, because I
Oh my
think it would
gosh,
be
I
fun.
agree. And even just like this nostalgia talk, I was like, should we be doing like a nostalgia thing together? Because like you'll say something that brings me right back to 1987, and then I say something like, oh my God, I remember being there. I was like, there might be something there. I don't know.
Yeah,
But I love
I
working with you, Janine. And I want you to know your online comedy fundraisers are like giving me like I've written like all my new material has been coming out of that. Like I've been because I don't like going to open mics. And so that has been such a gift for me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I have 3 big headlining shows this summer and they're gonna be great because
awesome. Oh, thank you so much. And you know what? I love it too, because again, we've talked about this. I don't really like going out to open mics, although I do feel guilt. And I mean, I have to have a serious come to Jesus meeting with myself, because I see certain people locally who are like, I feel like are killing it. And that's great for them. But I'm like, do I need to keep comparing myself every single time I say, oh, wow, they're doing a comedy show there and there and there. And I'm like, I don't. And I need to stop that, because again, at 53, I'll be 54 in September. It's time for me to set boundaries and priorities. Like, where do you want to put your energy and focus? What brings me joy and what can bring me money? Like, those are literally the things. And it's like, it's great that these people in their 30s are doing this and that. you've done a lot yourself. You don't need to be like, oh, they did that. Now I got it. Like I literally still do that. And I'm a little disappointed myself that I still do it, but I need to pull back on that. So to your point, I thank you. I'm glad that they're working and I like them too, the online comedy shows, because we do get to do them from the comfort of our own home. But more importantly for me, I get to work with someone like you and the first one, Roya, up in Massachusetts, to
Yeah.
have this like spectrum or this like the geography spread all over that people can hop on and share their comedy. And I do love that. Yeah.
It was really fun. And for me, like where I'm at now, like I always struggled. Like part of the reason I think I was doing Build a Box every month was like, you have to be visible, you have to be out there, you have to show you're doing. And it was like, I'm not making money, so it's not real as far as I'm like, you know what I mean? Like I want to be paid for my art. I've done this too long to just be giving it away for free. And this last year, I've been getting so many local people like, well, where can I see you? And when am I going to be a city? And I'm like, book me, pay me. I'm not doing this for free anymore. And I feel good in my heart that like I'll do it when I want to do it on my terms and people are valuing me. But like a lot of the gigs, like you see people doing, like you and I both know they only make 50 bucks, maybe 100. Is that a gig you really wanted just to be on the showcase at the club? I don't fall for that anymore. Like the comedy, it's so gatekeeping and not real. And and it's so far from the art of like expression. I can't. Like, so I'm fine. And I think honestly, getting that autism, ADHD diagnosis made me realize I never have to fit in any typical box ever again. I am Gab, I am a comedian, and I do it on my terms. I don't need to do it like everybody else. And that's really like giving me such a freedom and a happiness. And yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah.
stress.
I
You're
yeah, and we'll
killing it.
thank you very much. And I will like I'll share more of that offline because I don't want to sound like I'm dissing anything or whatever, but it's just like like these festivals I've entered a couple recently, and it's like you're basically paying to perform, and I'm like, okay, because I want to be part of it, and I'm not dissing them, but I'm like, what am I doing? And is this what I and again, I'll be honest, I feel like I quote unquote need to or have to because of what other people are doing. Yeah, I just need to reevaluate what I really want, because with the festivals though, I will say, and again, I'm not bad mouthing any of them, so I don't want to be unclear. You're paying to perform, and
Yeah.
then sometimes you're performing somewhere that you need to drive to that's also costing you money, and I'm like, I've always seen other people do it, like, and I'm like, wow, I want to perform in a festival, I think that's cool. And not saying it's not cool, but is it really where my priority is right now? So yeah, I agree with you. And on that note, and again, I don't want to go too long because I said I wouldn't, and now I'm the one who's continuing it. But it gets really frustrating anymore with this whole idea of like like fighting to get people's attention, and you know what I mean. Like you got to be noisy, you got to be like, it's the worst. Click here to see. I mean, like you've got to be so sensational. I can't do it. I don't want to do it. And it seems like that's all that's getting people's attention. And then, like you said, like people who are like, oh, well, where can I see you? Hire me. Just freaking hire
Wow.
me?
I'm not doing it for free anymore for this town. I love my city more than anything in the world, and I would love to do a big show here, but it has to be right. I'm not doing it. And I have had a couple offers, but it's like, Gab, can you come and do stand up for $30 on a Friday night? No, I can't. Not after I've just performed all day and I'm exhausted. I can't. I mean, I could, I just don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to. But
Yeah.
thanks. You know.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's like you said before, again, not dissing anyone, but I think they have a lot of these comedians that I'm seeing that I'm like, they have such passion to perform and like hunger. So it's like it's okay if it's $25 at the end of the day or 50 or whatever. And it's like, and that's fine if it works for them. But for me, I think it's like that come to Jesus where it's like, Janine, it doesn't work for you. And I still want to occasionally do shows, but it's like at the end of the day, like when I do them and then I have to cancel because there aren't enough ticket sales. And then
Correct.
the people, oh, where can I see you? Literally, like for the last online comedy show, I think there was like 4 or 5 people. And now I have the recording, which I'm going to try because I still want to raise more money for the humor therapy fund. But it's like, if it's a priority or if you really care, then you know what, just hire us, get a group of people together, or if you have like a fund or a fundraiser or an organization, simply hire us because that's the way to go. I mean, otherwise we really do. And I'm saying we, but I'll say for myself, speak for myself and say, I need to start looking at where's my energy going? And even is there satisfaction, not just money, but is there satisfaction? Is there joy? And is that where maybe I could be using that energy and time for something else that will produce something more for me that would make me happier. So yeah.
Exactly. That's the way to be, Janine. Take care of Janine. It'll all work out.
Yes, it will all work out. Well, thank you so much, Gab, for joining me this week. I really hope people enjoy this because I think it was fun. And I think a lot of people, well, not a lot, but I think everybody for the most part can relate because most of us have had summer jobs and a lot of them have been, I'm sure, fun. A lot of them have been painful. A lot of them have been terrible. But like, no matter what kind of job, I'm sure most people can relate. And I appreciate you sharing your stories. As always, you are so much fun to talk to. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I feel like after they hear these stories, they can realize why I had to work for myself. Because I was like, oh, yeah, you're not good at work, Gab. You're bad.
Well, hey, I love what you're putting out into the world, and you have the best positive energy and attitude. And I think we need more of that. So please don't change.
Thanks, Janine. Back at you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for my listeners. As always, keep listening. The weeks ahead, we'll have some great folks in June. I have people on the top of my head. I'm not going to say them yet because we're still working on getting the dates to do the conversation. So I, of course, will share what's coming as soon as I have the information. I will share on my social media. So make sure you're following Funny Wine Girl Janine on Instagram and on Facebook. And of course, you can always follow Janine Luby, Luby, rhymes with Ruby, the beautiful gem, and Booby. Make sure you get them checked out every October or before then. You can follow me on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in supporting content like this, either fun stuff like this, which I think is always entertaining, but many weeks it's more perhaps informational, inspirational, and entertaining. All those three things that I want to do with my guests each week, and I like to promote women. If you would like to help support that kind of content, please reach out to me. I'm always looking for podcast sponsors, and I can assure you that if you have a coffee addiction and you have a coffee a day, sponsoring this podcast is cheaper and it's a great investment. So keep that in mind. Reach out to me. So, on that note, I will say, as I say each week, I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.